Hello, friends. On the 28th of April 1988, around 1 p.m. in Hawaii, the Aloha Airlines flight to 43 was about to take off. It was a beautiful day, a sunny day, and most of the passengers were there to enjoy their holidays. In case you don't know about Hawaii, it is a group of islands in the Pacific Ocean. They are beautiful islands and their capital is Honolulu. This flight was actually traveling from Hilo to Honolulu. It was a 35-minute flight, a routine flight. This specific plane had already flown 8 times since morning. It had gone on 3 different round trips. Everything was going as it should. Passengers board, the doors were closed, and at exactly 1:25 p.m., the flight took off. There was one unusual thing though. When one of the passengers was boarding the plane, before entering the door, she saw that the riveted sheets that make the body of the plane, one of those sheets had a little crack. But she didn't tell anyone about it, but no one could have imagined how devastating this was going to be. Only after 10 to 15 minutes of the plane's takeoff, the air hostesses brought in the trolleys and started serving drinks to the passengers. There were 3 air hostesses on the flight, serving drinks to the passengers. And as soon as it reached to 4 height, there was a big blast. The passengers heard a loud bang and there was a sudden rapid decompression. People have trouble breathing. Things went flying all around. Total chaos and terrible confusion. No one could understand what was happening. Some passengers looked around and saw that the plane's roof and surrounding walls were missing. They could see the sky above them. What happened was that about 35 square meters of the front of the plane's body had disintegrated and blown away. Due to the plane's roof being blown away, the oxygen mask system was completely destroyed. People were concerned about hypoxia, the condition in which if your body does not get sufficient oxygen you can get unconscious and eventually lose your life. C.B. Lansing was serving a drink to a passenger near row 5. When the roof of the plane blew apart, she went flying out of the plane. There were only a few precious minutes after which all of them would lose consciousness and die. But apart from hypoxia, these passengers had to bear strong winds. Winds as fast as nearly 500 km/h speed were blowing at them. It was difficult to keep their eyes open, and the temperature was at minus 45 degrees Celsius at this height. Even if there was oxygen supply somehow, it wasn't possible to survive long in that cold, because most of the passengers were wearing shorts and t-shirts. The good news was that the pilots were actually alive, and not just alive, the pilots were in much better condition than the passengers. Their oxygen masks were thankfully working. 44-year-old Captain Robert Schomsteimer was in command, a highly experienced pilot working for Aloha Airlines for 11 years. With him was the 36-year-old first officer, Mimi Tompkins. When the explosion happened, both of them felt the shock, and when they turned around to see, they saw that the plane's roof was missing as well as the cockpit door. There was debris all around, but both of them immediately got to work. First of all, they wore their oxygen masks and considering the situation, they decided to go for an emergency descent. They flew the plane at the speed for 500 kilometers per hour and descended at a speed of 4,100 feet per minute. But the time constraint wasn't only for the descent of the plane. Mimi Tompkins contacted Honolulu and informed them about their situation. They were told to land the plane in Maui instead of Honolulu, since it was closer. At 1:48 p.m., she contacted Maui Tower and informed them about the situation. It was about 3 minutes since the plane's roof had flown away. But thankfully, the plane was at 14,000 feet. At this height, it wasn't difficult for most passengers to breathe. Everyone was waiting for this plane to land. A minute later, the plane had reached the height of 10,000 feet. At this point, the passengers could understand the situation better. They finally realized that the plane was flown by a pilot. Not only was the pilot alive, but he was flying the plane expertly. As the plane went towards the runway, Mimi Tompkins deployed the landing gear. There should be 3 sets of wheels, 2 on the rear and 1 on the front. The ones at the rear are called the main gear. The indicator showed that the main gear was successfully released. But the nose gear, the wheels at the front, weren't releasing properly. Now, technically speaking, it is possible to land without the front wheels, the nose gear. This is known as belly landing, and it is done during emergency cases. But in this specific case, where the middle portion of the plane was so weak, and the roof was already missing, the pilots were afraid to attempt a belly landing because then the plane would crash definitely. But there was no other option, there was nothing else they could do. The pilots decided to attempt landing like that. As soon as the runway was visible, the passengers were holding on for the landing. Some started praying. Others were hugging the people around them. This could very well be the last time they saw each other. Most of the passengers were still terribly scared. At 1:56 p.m., the pilots informed the Maui Tower that they will need all the equipment the airport had. Meanwhile, a person on the runway was tracking the plane with binoculars. That's when he spotted that the nose gear was successfully released. The plane didn't need belly landing then. At 1:58 p.m., exactly 13 minutes and 42 seconds after the explosion, Aloha Airlines Flight 243 touched down on the runway. The passengers were deported from the plane through the emergency exit. There's a real video of this. Was it luck that they survived? The credit goes to the technical equipment. I am talking about the seat belts.